Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Impact review for the 21st of October 2021. Needless to say, ultimately, um, weak show going into Bound for Glory. It is what it is. But anyway, the BTI pre show match will feature, obviously, W. Morrissey and Jake something. And again, I say it week by week. I don't like the BTI concept. Anyway, opening video is a recap to the build for the Activision Triple Threat match, and the Call Your Shot Gauntlet, and the Christian Cage Josh Alexander Impact World Title match. Anyway, Bullet Club, Chris Bay, and Halukado versus Finjuice, Robinson, and Finley ended with a double pin for the number one contenders match. These two teams come up with a shot for the Good Brothers tag team titles. Finjuice starts strong and take over on Bay. Kaduko comes in and Finley cuts him off, and the heat doesn't last very long. Robinson and Haduko get involved and end up taking out the referee in the process. Match continues with a second referee, but it was now Haduko and Robinson are tagged in under the new referee supervision, and the match comes down with all men in the ring. But both referees get in the ring, and they have different people in mind as their legal men, and then both get the pin. Each referee counts to three. All wrestlers and referees get discuss what happens after this, and they're trying to figure out who the winner is. Diamore said that he'd review the action and have a decision done by tonight. Video package Josh Alexander and his childhood start in wrestling. Jay Phoenix, his neck injury about winning the X Division Championship, and more. Good video package, although it's kind of overselling things if he doesn't win, so they've kind of telegraphed the winner of the main event for the Bound for Glory pay-per-view. John Skyler and Tennille Dashwood defeats Crazy Steve and Chelsea Green, and Jordana Grace and Falaba in a three-way dance tag team match. Not a fan of these intergender tag matches. These folks will be going into the Countdown to Glory to crown the inaugural Digital Media Championship. I guess it makes sense to do something digital media, but then qualified. And they do singles matches broadcast on Impact Digital Media, and then it starts with some comedy with Ba and Steve, and then later biting his opponent. Match eventually comes down to Grace and the ring. Took him down, Dashwood, and then later pairs up with Skyler, and then takes down an elbow and a Vader bomb for the early pin attempt. Ba then tags in and splashes everyone in the corner. He then tries to hit a bonsai drop on Dashwood, but Skyler was there to save her. Steve jumps in and knocks out Skyler, and then hits the deep impact on Falaba. But Dashwood jumps in, takes out Steve, and hits the spotlight kick on Ba for the pin. I don't think he's long for this company if he's getting pinned by a lady. Rhino and Heath have a segment. Rhino comes out to the ring and addresses his challenge by Heath to Violent by Design, and whether Heath will be able to convince Rhino to join him against them, Bound for Glory. Before he could speak, Heath comes out. Heath is talks about their past, and then he knows this wasn't the real Rhino. He knew that this was all Eric Young is doing, but he and Rhino needed to communicate. And he talks about his kids, caring about Uncle Rhino, and obviously the fans chant along with this. And then Violent by Design came out, Confronting Rhino and Heath, Young told Rhino that Violent by Design is forever and one does not simply walk away. Heath and Eric Young goes back and forth, trying to get to Rhino and have him decide who would side with. Eventually, Diener and Doring had enough and start beating up Heath, and Rhino watched, but it wasn't long before Rhino pulled Diener off Heath. Rhino then sets up a gore on Heath, but instead rolled out and left through the crowd. Heath then tries to attack Diener, but Doring takes him out and easily. Young breaks the Violent by Design flagpole on Heath, but Rhino never comes back. Vignette for Minoru Suzuki's debut. He'll debut at this weekend's TV tapings, apparently. Mickie James defeats Savannah Evans with Tasha Steelz in a Pick Your Poison challenge match. Evans was Deonna Purrazzo's choice for James' Pick Your Poison challenge. It is built to Bound for Glory continues. James chooses Slimovich Purrazzo challenge. This is all first time, and James wrestled Impact Ring in about 6 years. Story of the match was that Evans is one of the most powerful women in the promotion, and she easily overpowered James. Evans would easily bring down James every time she gets her hands on James, and she lacked the experience and resilience that James had, and that she used to keep coming back. James manages to gain a little bit of an advantage. Steelz cuts her off, and this has come down to a bear hug from Evans, and James gets close enough to strike and bite Evans and hurts her enough to get in a small break and separation. James goes after Evans' leg and follows up with a couple of takedowns for near fall, but suddenly Deonna Purrazzo comes out to the ramp, and distortion is enough for Evans to recover, takes down James, and delivers her full Nelson slam for near fall. And James tricks Evans into the ring post, followed by a couple of roundhouse kicks, and then Mickie DDTs her for the win. First loss for Evans, but Evans does damage to everything, and Purrazzo has an advantage in the future. Purrazzo gets face to face with James and pushes her to attack her, but this is all a distraction for Matthew Reinwald to sneak up behind James and attack her instead. Purrazzo and Reinwald posed over James' fallen body. This is weak. I don't like the man-on-woman violence unless there's a story behind it, and there really isn't one that warrants that sort of thing these days in 2021. Gia Miller tried to interview Purrazzo about breaking the no contact clause. Purrazzo said it wasn't her who attacked James, it was Reinhold. Dia Moore confronts them and said that technically there had been contact and she should lose the title now, but instead she will wait for James to take the title at Bound for Glory, and then Reinhold will be banned from ringside. Get a skit with Brian Myers and his learning tree, where Myers berates their failures and is disappointed in them as students. Myers fires Lemons and tells him to expect a garbage bag with his stuff in the mail, which is a shot at the Mickie James thing. The way she was let go. Myers also fires Sam Beal from the team. VSK and Ziggy Dice left with Myers. Beal looked really heartbroken by the change in his employment status. Scott Dewar preempted and over the Knockouts title match contract signing. R.D. Evans was there and manages to deal with the inspiration. DK magically appeared at the office. Rosemary was wearing the greatest suit that would uh, that would suit her. DK makes an issue of all of this, and they want their contract signed in blood. Trey Miguel defeats Alex Zane. Zane makes his debut a few weeks ago in a triple threat contest in pursuit of the X Division title. Trey Miguel wins. These two get into a verbal dispute. Decent match. Both men measuring each other out, and then they do some chain wrestling and a couple of counters and reversals with both men showing off. Pace picks up, and Miguel starts to gain some momentum, but Zane keeps coming back, and Miguel starts to look for a head submission, but there's a lot of trouble keeping Zane down, and who would punch his way back up to his feet, only to follow front flip Rana for near fall. Miguel then goes, and then Zane goes after a superplex. Miguel then tries to counter with a power bomb after being blocked. He turns into a cheeky Narda, and then the Trey 19 and the Meteor for the win. Not a fan of this, but it is what it is. D'Lo Brown and Josh Matthews run down the final card for Bound for Glory and how they're highlighted for the rest of the week. Final segment of the program, Christian Cage and Josh Alexander cut a promo. Alexander comes down to the ring, talks about being 2 days away from challenging for the title, and everyone said it was too much risk for him. He says all the risk is on him, having to come back to wrestling from injury, and after clawing his way to this one shot, the risk he's willing to take and not let his children down. Christian Cage comes out and joins him in the ring. Cage tells Alexander that he knew what he was feeling because he'd been on the biggest stages and wrestled for the top titles and held the biggest matches in the industry. He said the difference between him and them is that he thrives under pressure, but Alexander failed to show that he had it in him. Alexander said that he heard it all from the critics, calling him tag team guy and the like. Cage then has a chip on his shoulder and is now slow, and he wasn't just a tag team guy. Alexander then said that Cage would never be the face of Impact while he keeps cashing checks from another company. So he would take the title because he would be the face of Impact and make sure that he steps towards the Impact door and all of that. They continued back and forth till they end up fighting, and things are kind of heated going into the pay-per-view main event. Still lackluster, but Impact is a third-rate brand, and it's not their fault. Anyway, we'll be back with more right after this.